Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to address you today, the opening of this conference devoted to global education and learning for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world, organized in partnership with UNESCO. And I wish, first of all, to extend my sincere gratitude to the Academic Network of Global Education and Learning, ANGEL, for convening this important gathering, bringing together passion and commitment. Let me take this opportunity also to applaud the important work carried out by our esteemed partners, the Global Education Network Europe, UCL Faculty of Education and Society, and UNESCO Chair on GCD in higher education. Well, we all know that in a world grappling with complexity, we know that no person, no country can tackle this alone. Fighting for a better world, social justice, reduction of gas emission, whatever we want for a better world is a kind of shared responsibility and requires collective action. And we all know that education is at the core of this process. Education is the most powerful catalyst for building such a society we dream of and we want to have. UNESCO promotes since decades this kind of vision, this kind of holistic approach, this kind of humanistic approach to education, which is about nurturing responsible, active, and engaged global citizens. What we are talking about, what we are looking for in your research-based initiative is very much to build citizens for the future. And global citizenship education actually plays a vital role in this process. As you will know, it aims to give learners better knowledge, sense of awareness, and changing behaviors in order to make an explicit, open expression of belonging to a global community and recognizes their own role in this global community. This is why UNESCO now is in a process of revision of a very important milestone recommendation, what we call 1974 recommendation adopted almost 50 years ago by member states, the very first milestone treaty on education for international understanding, cooperation, and peace. And we know all that this year, these troubled times, are really the right context to keep back this milestone legal framework and to update it and to make this a vital live tool in member states' hands, in community hands, to really promote this approach to and in and through education for a better society. One of the key learnings of this process is the importance of prioritizing research, because we all know that evidence-based practices in education can really bring a different added value. And the research you are running, the research you are building and you are working is very much an important part of our work as well. So that's why I'm very much encouraging you to go ahead and to build on your partnership in order to provide new data, new vision, and to make also the process of building global citizenship education in education systems a reality for all the countries of the world. We know that together we can amplify our impact, our action. We can mobilize resources, we can mobilize political attention and commitment and advocate for the integration of this 4.7 global citizenship education and peace education into education systems worldwide. We can reimagine education, colleagues. We can create, in education, a very peaceful, just and sustainable world together. I wish you a fruitful and inspiring conference ahead. Thank you.
Now I would like to pass the word to Ms. Agnieszka Skuratowicz, who is a lead in charge of youth education and cultural policies in the International Partnership Department, DG INPA of the European Commission. Agnieszka previously served as a strategic advisor to the President of the European Commission and the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. As you know, for many decades, the European Commission has supported development, education, and awareness raising, as well as global education. And it is my great pleasure to give you the word.
Thank you very much, Dita. Dear Massimiliano, dear Liam, Annette, and dear colleagues and friends here in Paris, but also online. It is really a pleasure to be with you here today, even more as the conference is really taking place at a critical juncture. Democratic space is shrinking, not only in the world, but also in Europe. People learn the skills to speak to each other if representing different sides of the political spectrum. Demographics, especially in our sister continent, Africa, where 70% of the population is below 30, puts an enormous pressure on the education systems and on the labor markets. The unprecedented technological progress and the AI bring new opportunities, but also lots of challenges to our societies and schools. 2030 is around the corner, while the progress towards the SDGs, and notably SDG 4, has taken the wrong direction. The number of priorities is growing, and I even didn't mention the climate change. Also within the education sector, access, equity, quality, vocational training or basic education, technical subjects or rather global citizenship education. They all compete for political attention and for the scarce financing. We are also facing various models and values which are put in competition in a polarized global disorder. Yes, the degrees of challenges and their complexity is huge. In light of the situation, you, the education community, cannot afford continuing doing business as usual. We need to change the way we work, get out from the silos and go beyond the education crowd to push for collective action. You have to learn to speak to others who think differently. Learn to speak the language of ministers of finance, of labor, infrastructure, of CEOs, of companies or foundations. We have to connect the dots. We have to create, deepen, and expand networks among universities, academic institutions, civil society, local authorities, youth organizations in Europe and all over the world. Build ecosystems of connection and research to bring solutions to the tables of policymakers that reflect the many interdependencies in what we do and the various facets of the challenges that we face. And I must say that the implementation of the Dublin Declaration will really be a game changer. Events like the Angel Conference today and tomorrow are also precious in that sense. The European Commission wants to walk the talk. As you may know, the EU remains the biggest donor in education, providing more than 50% of the official development assistance for education. We take a whole of government and a whole of society approach. We see education as an enabler for societal transformation that empowers youth while making our investment in green and digital society sustainable. We see it as a fundamental for human security with links to economic, environmental, peace and security and social agendas. We use education as a powerful tool for social mobility and our weapon to address inequalities. We want to build our action as Team Europe, pooling resources, public and private, and bringing our collective European expertise from the European education area to use. We also link the internal and external aspects of our policies. DEAR is part of this approach. So DEAR, which is the Development, Education and Awareness Raising Program, even if financed under our external policy budget, targets CSOs and local authorities in Europe and supports JIT and Angel. So to conclude, we are really hungry for the results of your work to bring us solutions, recommendations, evidence, stories, data, scenarios that will help us deliver on our SDG 4 and SDG 4.7 in particular. I wish you thought-provoking and policy-relevant discussion. Thank you once again for the invitation.
Thank you, Agnieszka, for your kind words. And now I would like to invite Gene Director Liam Wegimont, who is also a co-founder of Angel and who has a great interest and passion, not only in the relationship between policy and research in global education, but also in singing. Liam, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, from ministries and agencies, members of GEAN, international organizations, colleagues from UNESCO, from the European Commission, the Council of Europe North-South Centre, UNECE, OECD, colleagues and friends from the research and academic communities, from CSOs, colleagues from our global critical friends group from around the world. A special welcome. Welcome here today to Paris. Welcome also to those who are joining us virtually from wherever you are joining us. It really is a delight to be here this morning as we begin this enticing and we hope challenging conference. I want to say something about the birth of Angel. The French philosopher Paul Ricoeur says, to give people back a history is to give people back a future. And he talks about how one of the most interesting things about the past is the hidden arrows of futurity that are obscured, that are in the past that we need to unearth. So I just want to tell you a little story, because once upon a time, there were three professors who thought that it would be a good idea, professors of global education, who thought it would be a good idea to get their PhD students together. So Professor Annette Schoenflug from Bamberg, then Nuremberg, Professor Doug Bourne from the Institute of Education in London, and at the time, Professor Rauni Rasanen from Oulu University in Finland, and now succeeded by Professor Elina Lehtomäki, had this little dream of an idea that they would bring their PhD students and their chairs together. And they kindly invited Jean to come along to accompany them in that process. You don't know this, but many years before that, Jean had done a peer review of Finland and suggested that perhaps a chair of global education would be a good idea in Finland. We thought it might be Helsinki that would take up that challenge, but it turned out to be Oulu. So we were delighted when some years later, Jean was invited to take part. And from the start, the colleagues who were there at the start, they invited us because in Jean we recognized the importance of building a bridge between policymakers and research. Two very distinct and independent processes, functions, sectors, and yet crucial to each other. We wanted to build a bridge so that policymakers could be informed by the best of research and researchers might be informed by the concerns and burning issues of policy. So a few years after, when in Jean we had the opportunity, thanks to the European Commission and our national ministries and agencies, to partner with and support the development of the network, Angel was born. And then we brought on board our colleagues from Bologna, from Oporto, from Poland, and it's great to have broadened the membership of the network to include researchers from across the world, to include policymakers and practitioners also, with, I think, one dynamic purpose: to increase and improve global education, variously understood. And finally, because I don't want to keep us too long, just a little challenge for the next 2 days. In Jean, we see this conference as being in direct follow-up to the European Declaration on Global Education to 2050, the Dublin Declaration. For the last 2 years, Jean and our colleagues, partners have been working on this process. If you don't know the declaration, you'll see plenty of materials here. The Dublin Declaration has direct and immediate ramifications for policy research in the field of global education and learning. While I myself think that the Dublin Declaration is quite simply, as we'd say in Dublin, the best thing since sliced bread, not everyone may agree with me, but I would urge you to explore it, to read it, to take it off that pile on the desk. I don't suggest that it has to be bedtime reading, but it is really worth having a read. But as with everything, it has its strengths and its limitations. One of its strengths is that it was developed by consensus, by policymakers from European ministries and agencies like Thibault. It involved detailed input from stakeholders, youth organizations, CSOs, local authorities, researchers, international organizations Thank you to Agnieszka, to Lydia Ruprecht, along with colleagues from the OECD, UNECE, and the North-South Centre of the Council of Europe for their input. It also included our global critical friends, so it was a really strong process. But that strength is also its limitation, because the process was about building consensus. And I would suggest that now, in this Angel Conference, hosted by our wonderful friends in UNESCO, that we must move from and beyond consensus to dissensus, to critical dialogue and debate, as we see the need to deconstruct in order to reconstruct for more and better global education research. So wishing us all a stimulating and engaging conference. Thank you.